You're listening to the Poco a Poco podcast, sponsored by Spirit Juice Studios.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey.
I'm Father Mark Mary.
I'm Father Innocent. Father Angel's here.
And we are welcoming back Jackie Mulligan.
Thank you for having me again.
Great to have you, Jackie. And thank you, Spirit Juice Studios, for making this happen. And we'll just start out with maybe a thought. So you're a functional nutritionist.
I am.
Now, there's a little bit of like a joke, like when psychologists or something like that come around, like people are like, I don't want to talk to them because they're going to like psychoanalyze me. Does that happen with like when people know you're a nutritionist and they're like eating?
Yeah.
Do you think they react?
I saw a priest who's a good friend of mine in the grocery store recently, and he nearly jumped over his cart so that I wouldn't see what he had in there.
You're totally judging people in your heart as you like walk by. They're like, this guy's like...
Not at all. Maybe a little.
Maybe a little.
Because I was with the postulants for lunch and they knew you were coming over. And we don't always serve the healthiest lunches here.
What's always leftovers, you know?
So I have to.
But on Jackie days, we usually try to like up the game a little bit.
Jackie knows that though, so she tries to help at least. She tries to set us up for...
We had breaded fish sticks. How's that?
How's that for a nice, healthy lunch with no salad or no vegetable options?
Bro, you're looking at me look bad in front of Jackie. Like,
but so I was sitting with
I had granola.
You did, but this is like because there's like we have that kind of unwritten rule. I don't know if it's an unwritten rule. It's a kind of a rule. It's like you eat what's served.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, was that served, or you kind of went and did your own thing?
Wow. First of all, you don't know me. I actually had this.
But I do know what you had.
Had this. I didn't eat breakfast. I need something healthy right now instead of the leftover breaded fish sticks on the thing. They just weren't.
And they were lukewarm. Even better.
Can we have permission? Like, what? How does that work with like Can I like if there's no healthy options? I'm middle aged now. I can't be eating fish sticks every meal.
Well, here's the thing. I think that's why I have to teach the postulants. Like you have to put things out. So usually there's a salad. Usually there's almond butter, peanut butter, like these things that everything's donated, right? Mm-hmm. But so we had to like put all those out so guys can be like, oh, I'll have peanut butter and an apple. We don't have apples. We're on that one, Jackie. Just kidding. So it's like we need to put everything out and so set guys up for success.
Okay.
There was tartar sauce though.
You got to dunk it in something.
There was
exactly why I had granola and a banana.
Today's Thursday, so today's Saturday. So yesterday we had fish because it was Friday, and so Zach, one of our postulants, made a huge thing of
tartar sauce.
And
he like looked up the recipe of homemade, dude, but no one ate it. Like no one.
Well, there was a lot of it.
Yeah, but I was in the kitchen with him. He's like, no one liked my tartar sauce. And he was like, I'm like, yeah, bro, it happens. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't really do tartar sauce if I can avoid it.
Can I just say something before we move on? Because I feel like we're to that point where we need to move on. It's hard to cook. It's hard to cook during fast seasons when you want to do something nice for the brothers and then no one's eating. You put it out and then no one eats it. You're like, this is a flaw in our system. You ready for this, Father Mark? Just communicate ahead of time when you're fasting. So I don't have to make this amazing chicken breast with rice and this and that. I was like, I wouldn't have cooked it for you if I knew you were fasting. Anyway.
Or maybe we could just as principle have like simpler meals all the time.
Whoa. It's my love language.
Is it?
It's a flaw. It's a flaw in the system. I need to know if you're fasting.
Is it the flaw in the system or in you?
Ooh.
We're going to
segue.
We're going to
segue.
Long story short is I had a orange and a banana to end my dinner and left them on the plate. So if you came in, that's what you would see. But I feel like you've been around enough. You'd be like, I can see the grease on the plate. Come on.
Last time I was here, Father Glenn knew I was presenting. And when we were finished, I walked through the cafe or through the main hall where you guys eat. And he had every sugary cereal or anything that you could imagine on the table. And he's like, look, Jackie, look at these guys. You can't trust them for a minute. It was
Fruit Loops,
it was really intense stuff. And I had a panic moment of like this. Or did you guys really just eat that? But then I knew it was Father Glenn. So
well done, Father Glenn.
Yeah,
well
great.
You gotta appreciate that,
it was great.
But then the question is, we do really have those stuff in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Oh.
What just happened? I just like to say my chair just broke. I saw it happening. The chair leg.
Wow. I don't know what to say.
All the angels have been
we have construction last time, and now my chair just broke.
No more.
I'm laughing hysterically. I don't know what to say. Felt like it just like fell on the ground.
Jackie's almost crying.
It's hard.
You know what they say.
It's time to keep going.
You can't have a chair with 3 legs and one's missing. You're going down.
I was laughing with Jackie, and suddenly Father Angus was on the ground. We're good. We're settled back in the sturdy chair. All right, Father Mark, lead us.
All right. So just okay. We're gonna set the stage again real quick. All right. So we're on this journey, kind of, especially through the beginning of 2021 when we'll be doing this and leading up to Lent and this journey of renewal and authentic renewal and reform and growth and healing and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's okay, you're not okay, but it's more okay if you're okay. And so we're going to pursue what the Lord wants for our lives. And we're using a couple tools. We've just finished up the series with A Work of God, and we proposed that book. And again, if you want to check it out, it's a great sort of witness to hope and that renewal and change is possible no matter what your situation. And then we're going to be kind of really looking at kind of 2 tools. I think so. Tomorrow, February 4th, is the first day you can pre-order Habits for Holiness, which is the book I wrote with Ascension Press. And really the idea for it, do I have my dates right? Yes, February 4th. The idea for it is like, okay, it's a handbook for holiness. All right, you want to follow Jesus radically, you want to live the gospel in 2021 in the midst of a crazy situation or crazy world or crazy culture. We can do it, and here's how you do it. So if you want to pre-order that, that's going to be sort of our textbook for really probably a couple months down the road here. And then we're with Jackie with Reform. Reform Wellness is the full name, correct? And just again, for a synopsis, for those who maybe weren't with us or who could use a reminder, what is Reform about?
We look at the whole person. It's a faith-based wellness practice. And we look at the state of your body and your soul together to define well-being. And so we place all of our attention on Christ at the center.
Amen. And what we're going to do, the language I want to use to begin the conversation is there's this understanding of the Catholic Church is as both and there's always a tension for us to create a division where there's not meant to be a division. So it's both like reverence for the Eucharist and love of the poor. It's both theology and spirituality and compassion, and also it's both body and soul, right? Like, and we don't want to idolize one side of them or have sort of a spirituality without a body or a body without a spirituality. Like, we don't want to go either of those. We're what is it? Ensouled bodies and soul, ensouled bodies with souls.
Yeah. Nice try. We're not. You're not bodies without souls and souls without bodies. Like, there's this.
You're both,
bro. I'm here for you.
If you want to know how to say that, listen to the Dominican podcast, God's Planning.
We're not that, you know.
And so I think, like, maybe we can just start here, Jackie. I feel like in your work, kind of beginning back where you're doing more of just the health in its own space, where maybe you're running into people more who are really just focused on health of their body, and probably with your work with religious and priests, some of that, you're finding people who are only focused on their souls, and they're not taking care of their bodies, which ends up hurting their souls or their ministry. Would you share just a little bit about that?
Yeah, we use, St. Augustine has a quote that says, take care of your body as if you're going to live forever and your soul as if you're going to die tomorrow. And that's really how we approach our clients in our own lives, to say, we have to look at both and, just like you said. And the truth is that they're already interconnected. So your body speaks your mind, your body speaks your soul. I think if we all look to, I kind of use this example of, let's look at 2 high school students. And we've got, I thought you were going down too.
they're like serious twins.
I'm good. Sorry.
But if you look at 2 high school students and you look at, let's say two guys, one is Six-Pack Jack. He's on the football team.
You were Six-Pack Jack. I was waiting for that. As soon as she said it, I was like, something's going to happen here.
He even, gets really, really good grades. But on Saturday nights, Jesus goes in a little box, and maybe not the best with relationships and keeping the state of his soul in a certain place. The world would take one glance at him and say, healthy. look at the aesthetics of his body, and even academics, like this is a really healthy kid. And that's true to an extent. And then you look at another kid who might be a little bit less fit, maybe a little, on the chubby side, not as outgoing, not athletic, maybe not even.
Father Andrew, as soon as you said chubby, I knew that was
coming for it. But maybe not even doing that well academically, but just rock solid in faith, solid in relationships, and just totally authentic. I don't know that the world would label that one healthy. And so we kind of have it a little bit backwards, and that it actually neither one of them are fully healthy in their whole person, but it actually have parts of them that are healthy. And so we have to look at our body and our soul together in order to really be whole and healthy as God intended us to be.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to when you were on the Abiding Together podcast, and I was listening to. By the way, have you listened to our podcast a little bit?
Of course.
From the beginning. Okay.
Here's a nice response.
Yeah, of course. Good answer. Strong answer. When we first began our podcast, the Abiding Together podcast was like on their break. And so they're putting up like reruns. And so like, then there's this thing called like pod chart. Like you can see like how podcasts are doing. I was like, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, they're like better than us, but like we're kind of, they're like pro, but we're like D1. Like we have some potential. We could possibly be there.
We're like potential. Top 25. Top 25. We're there.
And then they started new episodes again, and all of a sudden they like skyrocketed. I'm like, oh no, we're not. We're not in the same league. We're like 12-year-old. We're like T-ball. We're little league, and they're in the big leagues. But I was listening to that podcast, and one of the things you said, which was like, oh, duh, this is what I've been doing, is you talked about how when you work with priests, like they can just be so worried about their soul and the salvation of their souls and others that there's this total neglect of the other side of their life, of their health, right? And in the long run, that's detrimental, and that becomes a space for you to get in trouble. And I've been meeting with Michelle Benzinger's husband. I meet with Chris every week, and part of it is because for about 5 or so years, like I just wasn't living a balanced life. But it felt good and it seemed good because it was generosity. It was mission driven. It was gospel driven. And I was talking, and we're working with things. We're just like working with Chris and kind of like getting the foundation shored up again. And one of the things that like we've been talking about like wake up time, exercise, and some basic nutrition things for almost 2 months. And at one point, I'm like, I think this is where we're supposed to be, and it's good. And I see how it's bearing fruit in other ways of my life. But it feels like it feels kind of funny. It feels like we should be talking about something else. And I was like, yeah, but that mentality is probably why I got in trouble in the first place. Right. And so I've just been very convicted in my own life. And I think that's probably why I feel comfortable with us, the friars, like talking about this, because no one's going to think that we're not serious about Jesus, I don't think.
Yeah.
But because we're serious about Jesus, we're also serious about our body and our health, because we realize how they're interconnected. And I guess I'll share one other. So that's just the thought. Like this stuff matters. It's good, and this all is oriented towards Christ. We're bringing it all to Christ. Like in Deuteronomy, like I want you to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. Like we want to give the Lord everything. And I had this experience down I think it was in Honduras at the time. Because do you guys can resonate with this? Like. So we didn't always look like this. Like when you look at the mirror sometimes, are you still like, how did this become my life? Does that happen to you at all? Or you just kind of are used to what you see?
I'm kind of used to it by now.
No, I think like when I put on a gray habit every day and I'm like, and I have a beard and like I'm starting to get grays in my beard. I'm like, what happened?
We saw a picture of us with our sister probably 6 or 7 years ago. Like we looked really young then.
And one of the Pashans said that was pre-stress. Excuse me.
Pre-responsibility.
That was like pre-responsibility. It's like pre-dad.
But yeah, we can talk about that. But I mean, I would rather be dad than I'd rather be gray dad than
yeah, totally. I'm 1,000% in. You got it.
I'm all about it. But I had this. Like, then you're just used to it. You never just take a moment and like, dang.
Like I look old. Happen? Like how did this happen? Is that what you're kind of?
No, that you like are a friar and you're not like you don't have your comb over or whatever.
Not when I look in the mirror. It's more so when I have the habit on and I have these moments where like, wow, this is really it. This is our life. This is where I'm at and what I'm doing. I'll have those little moments of.
You had your comb over. You slipped that in there.
Well, I didn't know what else to call it.
You use gel. You have gel and Now you have a receding hairline, so that's tough.
It's all there. I don't pay too much attention to it now. Just gone. The hair's gone.
We tried to get Jackie to jump in on pick on Father Angelus, and she said,
Thank you, Jackie.
He was safe.
Thank you.
She's been honoring that. I said, hey, listen, it's totally appropriate to make fun of Father Angelus on this. And she's like,
most guests do not honor that, Jackie. They just jump right in.
I'm holding firm, standing my ground.
Steady.
Because I'm a whole person. My self-esteem matters, Father Mark.
Father Mark. Wow.
You've been saying it too.
I'm sorry.
Hey, victim looks good on you, Father Angelus.
One of the key victim looks good. I guess I just have a thing going on. I'm not really a victim in real life, but I guess in this podcast, they just pick on me.
So when I am... Whatever. When you're trying to make yourself bottom 4 and when you're top 4, that was like, you're a rock
You guys
star.
tell Jackie about that sometime.
Anyway. So I just had I was down in Honduras. I was there from 2012 to 2014 as a friar. And I kind of had this like moment of like reflection, like what the heck is happening in my life? And it ended up being a beautiful thing because I just noticed that like, to some extent, like at least on one level, like my relationship with Jesus had touched everything. Like the reason we have, like I have the haircut I have, like I had like long flowing locks, kind of curly,
like curly,
yeah,
like
curly
California, Jackie, like preppy gated community California,
right? So I had like hair. I never had any facial hair at all. I didn't wear glasses until I became friar.
You still really don't have facial. Like let's just say that you don't really.
We transitioned out of silly talk time to serious time. Jump on board.
I'm here.
You good?
Yeah.
Someone had to say something about the beard, though. You walked right into that. Anyway,
I thought I was doing better. So the facial hair, some expression of facial hair, if you want to call it a beard or not, is because of Jesus, right? What I wear is because of Jesus. The fact that I don't wear shoes is because of Jesus. And at that point, like the country I lived in Honduras, like the place I lived is because of Jesus. The people I live with is because of Jesus. The work I do is because of Jesus. Like where I sleep is because of Jesus. And I was just realizing like the beauty of like all of these, like everything had been touched by my relationship with the Lord. And obviously there's these interior places that like the Lord, this is the thing, like the Lord wants everything. And I desire the Lord to touch everything. And I'll use this with our postulants probably at some point with like obedience. It's sometimes because it's like if you want to go play basketball, you might be a 25-year-old guy, but you ask permission. Mm-hmm. And instead of that movement, like, this is like, are you kidding me? I'm 25. It's like, you know what? Like by coming with like to obedience, like I even want the Lord to touch everything. Like, can I go and visit so-and-so tonight? I bring it to obedience. And it's like the Lord touches that, he blesses that. And I realize in my life, like there's areas of my life with health, with exercise, with nutrition that maybe the Lord hadn't touched. And so the invitation and the journey I'm on, it's like, all right, Lord, I give you, there's nothing off limits. There's nothing I don't want to be touched by and affected by my relationship with Jesus. And I think that's the disposition I'm praying to have. And I think that's the disposition we want our listeners to have. Father Angel, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, bro. I mean, to combine what Jackie had said and what you had said, like there's just working with the guys who are coming in the community is just an interesting thing because it's like whether it's formally a value or it's where I would say publicly it's a value. I'm about ready to say publicly it's value. But the challenge is that like, that's what I want. I want guys who are open to saying, yeah, I've looked at my life. I'm at a place in my life where I'm open to having the Lord work in all parts of my life. And that's attractive to me and guys who are discerning. Guys who can talk about, of course, what God is doing in my life and how I hear God's voice in prayer and what I feel him calling through. They can talk about their desires, how they feel the Lord moving in their life, but also then they talk about their relationships, their friendships. They talk about their family members, how their hearts are moved. They talk about, one of the final questions we have guys ask, like, what do you like to do for fun? Father, I love to read, but I also love to hike and I love enjoy the outdoors. And so you hear guys that play music. And so guys can touch on how Jesus has influenced these parts of their lives. And that is super attractive. And so I think sometimes it's like we're looking for a particular kind of guy. We're looking for a well-balanced guy. We use that word all the time.
Yeah, that means very something particular in the formation.
But balance is not this neutrality or this moderation. We're not looking for moderate men. We're looking for balanced men because the balance is in God and Jesus come into all different parts of my life and recognizing that I might not be ready to enter into religious life because I haven't let the Lord in to this particular place. So the process of discernment is this: let's let Jesus in there. And let's grow and let's have a particular plan and have your spiritual director work with you or a counselor work with you to work and to grow in this particular place in your life. And we've all had that. So it's great to walk with young men, but like there are parts of my life that I haven't let Jesus into. And that's convicting, and that's helpful for us who are professionals these days and do this for a living. But it's wonderful to see guys become healthy, and then they're free enough to say yes. We talked about that before. They're set free to follow Jesus and to make him everything. But I think some guys are a little thrown off sometimes with that when you actually want to talk about everything and more what God's doing in their life and not just in one piece of it.
I just really appreciate the I mean, we say this a lot probably on this podcast, but it's like an all-in attitude, like where Jesus, I'm all in. And we've all gotten to that place in our lives where we're tired of holding back or hiding. We have to stop hiding. And we have to give Jesus permission to like into every part of our lives. And I just got like in my own life and my own journey, I like got really good at hiding and really, really good at kind of just like presenting the person that I thought I wanted to be. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be really like, I'm just like going to look the part. My own conversion as a friar, it was just like, I thought it was like the shell. Okay, I'm going to have the beard, I'm going to have the habit, and I'm going to show up to prayer, and I'm going to live the schedule, and I'm going to be joyful, and I'm going to be good at these things, right? But what I realized though is that it was like this, only the shell, and like what was happening on the inside, right? I was afraid. I was hiding myself, and I was hiding my struggles, and like I had deep desires. I didn't know how to fulfill them, and like all these different things. And until someone invited me to stop hiding and to let Jesus into every aspect of my life, and that's what we say is like fully human. Right, we were souls without bodies and bodies without souls. We're not souls without bodies and bodies without souls. Like if I want to be perfect in holiness, like St. Paul says, we have to just invite Jesus into the fullness of ourselves and stop hiding from him. Deacon Keating has this great, Deacon Keating teaches about chastity and purity of heart by saying like, stop hiding. The world tells you that all these things are going to be the answer, and we disorient or like reorient our hearts towards other things, and we hide in them. So the invitation to be fully human is to stop hiding behind these other things, these empty shells, and just be vulnerable and all in for the Lord. And I just think it's a really difficult starting place, but a beautiful starting place. And this is where it happens.
Mm-hmm. In one moment, we'll send it over to you, Jackie, particularly about like sort of the pillars and the monstrous idea. As you were saying that, Father Innocent, we quote Father St. Francis saying this a lot, and it's St. Francis talking about to the brothers about the Eucharist, and he says, "Hold back nothing of yourselves for yourselves, so that he who gives himself totally to you may receive you totally." And again, this is it's beautiful because it's in front of the Eucharist, which obviously it's where Reform is born out of, but sometimes that all of us that the Lord wants to encounter, like I want all of the Lord to encounter all of me, and so that's all of me. And so that's sinful areas, that's this, that's that. But one thing that's, I think you come across this all the time is like there's at some point in the process where you're trying to help people not be dependent on coffee, and like
she tried that with me. I'm just kidding.
But you like kind of people are joking about like, we want to like are you really joking? Or are you serious? Cause that's the thing, like, okay, but except coffee. But it's like, well, hold on. Like if we're believing that this whole journey is good for all of you, can you at least say, okay, if this is what it's going to take, if this Lord's going to ask this, and it's going to be for my good, I'll even put coffee on the table. I'm not saying you have to like do it poke by poke, little by little, but like we really want to get to the place where it's like, yeah, I want all of you, Lord, and I want to be who you made me to be, and so we're not going to do it all at once, but if you wanted to, I'm gonna give you permission to touch and transform all of my life. So with that, Jackie, can you just kind of take us where you think would be the next best step to go?
Yeah. Father John Anthony in the CFRs, he says moderation and moderation. And I love that because it allows you to not use the excuse of, I'll do everything in moderation. It's like, yeah, well, even that should be done in moderation. And Reform was born in adoration. I spent a lot of time when I was talking last episode about my conversion or reversion, reformation. Renewal, that I spent a lot of time in prayer, particularly in adoration. It was there that I knew that unless I put Christ at the center of everything, something else, somebody else, someplace else was going to be my God. And that I have a very goal-all-in personality, and life can tend to be very black and white, which actually has been a benefit in a lot of areas of my life. But the only area that it's supposed to be black and white in my lens and Reform's lens is with Christ at the center. And so when I was looking up at the monstrance, I realized that where he is, where the Eucharist is, where there is life and truth and freedom, is with him at the center, and that everything else flows around that. So our symbol, how we depict and define health and well-being, is with the monstrance. And so it's Christ at the center, and then there's 8 pillars that go around that. So we have 9 pillars. Faith is the first one with Christ at the center. And then we're looking at nutrition, sleep, stress management, community, space, personal growth, play, and movement. And these are all really important parts of our well-being, but not one of them is more important than the other. There'll be seasons in our life where perhaps focusing on your nutrition is more important, or where you'll need more sleep or to better manage your stress. But they actually enhance the other and work really well to play off of the other. But none of them will ever take the place of Christ at the center, and none of them will ever be our idol or the thing that we have to make black or white.
Beautiful. I'll share a little bit again. So in my little walk with Chris, this is just kind of a testimony to the interconnectedness of it all. I'm meeting with him because, like, basically, I shared this with some sisters when I asked them to, like, push the mass back an hour so I can have a meditation. I was like, okay, I'm some good to you right now, but I'm going to be a lot better capable and wise and able to serve you in like 20 or 30 years. And so I want to make sure I get it. And I'm still, I'm still around then, right? Yeah. And so they're like, you need to have a healthy foundation. And so, like with Chris, one of the commitments we had was waking up at 5. Basically, it's like 4:55 every morning, and just trying to get that consistent. And the idea is I'll spend like 30 minutes in the morning getting a little bit of exercise in. And it's just, it's really important for me because I struggle with it, to have that consistency, to get moving a little bit, to get the day off to a good start. And it's at the service of the gospel. And it's the service of my own prayer and my own discipleship and my own spiritual fatherhood. And one of the things I realized is some mornings, like it happened a little bit ago, like last week, is we had a later start. So instead of having the 6 o'clock office readings, we had 7. And because we're trying to like lay this foundation, like, okay, we're going to keep staying at 5. So I've been working out with one of the postulants, and he was like, oh no, I'm just going to do 6. Cause that's like, he doesn't have the same motivation or reason, for the same why. It's like, okay, cool. And I woke up at 5, and I remember just like kind of like hanging out and laying around for another like 20, 25 minutes. And so the thought process started. I was like, okay, why am I like, I don't keep the commitment when it's just me, but I need somebody else to be there. And I'm talking with Chris about it, and we get to this point, and it ends up being I'm living a selfish existence. And because like there's nothing in it for me about whether or not I wake up at 5 or 5:30 in that situation, I didn't choose it. And it's like, oh dang! So I just kind of went through a whole level of examination in that process. And what we were looking at, it was Christ is in it all. We're looking at like waking up time, and in choosing to do that at the service of Christ, God spoke into that. It's like, okay, here's all this other stuff here's what's going on. And so again, I think if it is rest, if it is diet, if it is all these things, and all integrate, like they're all integrated. And so when I'm doing well in one area of my life, like as I'm doing well in exercise and waking up, like I'm doing better in prayer, and I'm doing better in loving brothers. Like it's a package deal, I think, because we're human beings.
Totally. And I think one of the things that we say in Reform to our reformers is offer it up. So when you are making these changes, do it with intention. And I give this example all the time. My alarm also goes off around the same time. I've recently committed to 6:30 Mass a couple of months ago. And so I've been going every morning at 6:30. So the alarm goes off early. And if it were for me, for myself to get up at that time, I would give you like 100 scientific reasons why I should stay in bed for another hour. But I offer it up for special intention. Right now it's for my goddaughter. And so like now there is no way I am not getting up for that. And so when we offer it up and come outside of ourselves with intention, we won't fail somebody else. We'll fail ourselves, but we won't fail another person. And so the power, though, the fruit, I can tell whatever intention, person, thing I'm praying for, I can see the fruits in it with just a couple of days. It's amazing. And for us to limit the power of that is silly because there's so much there. And so it's kind of like a win-win. It's like we're benefiting from the change, and also our intention, but our suffering, our sacrifice, I should say, is being used for his good.
When I hear you both give like your examples of like this change or this like decision you make for the Lord, I'm just moved by your yes, right? You made a yes, like you're gonna get up, and the why, right? And what strikes me is, and maybe we all need to be reminded of this, but when we say this yes, like discernment's over. Like we're not getting up every morning saying like, okay, so like, what should I do? Like, should I get up? Should I not get up? No, like when we go on this journey, no, like I'm doing this for the Lord, and I'm not going to get up every day and discern like, what am I going to do? What am I not going to do? I give the example, the paradigm of marriage. Like when you're married and you have a little baby, you don't get up every morning discerning if you're going to take care of your family. Like discernment's over. Like I have made this decision for the Lord and for my life. And I say the same thing to the postulants. When they went home for Christmas, like you're not going to get up and discern the way you're going to live. No, you are consecrated men, and your discernment's over. You have made that decision for this year to live like that. And so it's such a freedom, because as friars and with your mission, Jackie, like you live this way and discernment is over. Like, and that's what the yes means. And I think that's I think this is the invitation we want to give our listeners, is to let your yes mean yes. And when you go on this journey, and whatever it is, like getting up, diet, like time in prayer, like to stop discerning every day what you're going to do, like make the decision and go for it. And then this is where the freedom comes, because this is the way we want to live for the Lord.
Father Innocent, Father Innocent, we're going to have Jackie for 3 episodes, and then Father Innocent's going to have some lessons from the desert. I think we can come back to this again if we need to, but can we just share the 23-mile kayak, that whole thing right now? Like about let your yes be yes?
Yeah, we can.
I think it's a good enough story. We can, if we need to come back to it.
And again. I think, and I won't tell the whole story because I think it happened with, you remember the guys flipping the canoe and those kind of things, but we don't have to tell that. But we had this situation where guys flipped the canoe and they almost had hypothermia.
To interrupt you real quick, just super brief, like why are you in the wilderness? What the heck? Like just.
So we go on a 3-week man camp, 5 postulants, the postulants and myself. Father Anderson is coming next year. I'm very busy. Lots of responsibility. It's an invitation. Lots of things. It's an invitation to get away from the city and go in the wilderness. God takes consecrated men in the wilderness to speak to their hearts and to strip them of everything. And so this is like a man camp that the boys really grow, and it's pretty incredible. So all the postulant moms listen to this, so they're probably like, "Why are you taking my sons?" So we had a tough day, canoe flip, hypothermia kind of mode. Everything ended up being fine, but
no one had hypothermia.
No one had
a scare.
It was a scare, but the guys rocked it. And it was an incredible day. It's probably one of the highlights of the guys digging deep and taking care of each other. And there's some really intense but funny moments. But guys rocked it. But because we did basically no canoeing that day, the next day we had to make out for it. So we had to canoe 23 miles, which however, if you're a pro, it's nothing. But for us, it was like, okay, this is a long day and it's cold on the water. And so there's 2 leaders of the day. And so the 2 postulants, start off in the morning, and it's a tough morning, right? We had a tough day, and guys are like, okay, we have to go 23 miles. They're trying to get everybody riled up, and they gave a pretty incredible, like the postulants. I was proud of them. They stepped up and encouraged their brothers, and like, here's what we got to do, bros. We got to do 23 miles. We got to take care of each other. We got to go for it. And in me, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, this is it. Like, I'm really supporting the guys because they're stepping up and leading. And so we canoe for the morning, and it's a really slow pace. And so that was the hard part. Like we just didn't have any momentum, right? So it's about midday, and it's pretty clear we're not going to make our campsite. And so I'm just really looking at the guide and myself are just really kind of sitting back to really ask the guy, like to see what how the guys are going to handle this. And at lunch, one of the Pashtuns comes up to me and says, "Hey, we're thinking about switching campsites because we're just not going to make it." And so they talk through it all, and the guide was patient with them, and he just said, "Okay, talk me through your plan." And so the guys talked through, and they were in my estimation, they were seriously like conceding, like, okay, like we thought we could do this, but we can't, and it's going to get dark and it's cold, so like let's just throw in the towel and like find another campsite. And so they left, and I talked to the guy, and I said, "Hey," I was like, "Jacob, this is not okay." Like they said 23 miles, and everybody said we're in, like we're doing this, and we like, this is not how we roll. Like we made a commitment to one another that we're going to do the 23 miles. And so this is not like this movement is not okay. Just like kind of settling that we can't do it. So we're going to change the course. And Jacob was awesome because he's like, you could see this kind of under it. So he got it. And we went back up to Pashtuns like, no, like this is not acceptable. Like we have a long time to go and it's going to be a long day, but like we need to get back on the water, because we said yes to this, right? And so it was beautiful. We made it, and it was dark, and it was cold, and it was probably the first tough night we had because we're like 6 days in, and this is the first night the algae bottles froze. This is the first night everybody's just freezing cold. You've been and we have to like climb up a mountain or like climb up like a cliff to get our stuff. We're pulling boats up, and it was hard. But I was proud of the guys because they yes mean yes. And I think the deeper reality here is that like we start off on a journey, and we say yes, and we give everything to the Lord. It's not okay to make excuses and to settle. And I was proud of the guys because they did it. And then when we're processing it after the fact, like, "Hey, can we walk through this? Like, tell me what happened." And they just had this inner awareness that like they were afraid, like we're not going to be able to do it. You know, we're too slow. Mm-hmm. And then and this is the idea in the desert, when you push through these things, you realize, but we can do it. And actually we did do it. And it was dark. It was cold. I was tired, but you said yes. You said like, this is what we're doing.
And you started that day with Mass and Holy Hour, right?
We started the day in Mass and Holy Hour in, like 16-degree weather. We're just being with Jesus. Like that was the beginning.
So now bring this together, because we're saying this is at the service of their relationship with Jesus.
And
what the heck does canoeing 23 miles have to do with me praying? Like why is this part of the formation?
Because I think what's beautiful is that we have it quoted on here, like you keep the main thing, right? Like we got up and it was 16 degrees out. And what we start with was Mass and Holy Hour. And this is after, again, another long day where there was a lot of fear, and we had to like break through a lot of things. And we offered the sacrifice of the Mass. And I remember like I couldn't even hold the Eucharist, that it was like so cold. I had to like stop and like warm my hands, right? And you do the elevation, and the sun's breaking over you're like, this is it, boys. Like this is why we're here. And then we sat in like 20-degree weather for adoration. And we sit with the one who brought us out to the desert, who's speaking to our hearts, and who's calling us deeper, and who's calling us to get over ourselves. Stop to stop being the center of our existence, letting fear take over, letting all these things take over. And from there, he gave us the strength to do everything. But we were following Jesus. He was at the center. And so when we made a commitment to Jesus, okay, Lord, like this is it. Like I'm following you, and we're here to grow. We're here to let go. We're here to push through. And so when you keep the main thing, then the rest of the day takes shape around that. So we're not gonna give into our fears. We're not gonna give into the lower nature that says we can't do it, or there's like it's too dark, it's too cold, we can't do this. But the guys, and it's beautiful because the guys kind of like had to be encouraged, but they recognized, okay, like we're doing it, boys. Like, let our yes mean yes. Mm-hmm. And with the Lord and with the grace that sustained us, we were able to do it.
Beautiful. There's that, we quoted last time, I think it's Aquinas, like grace built on nature. And there's something about like the capacity to just say, like to make commitments in this situation and to keep them, like marriage, the sacrament of marriage, which is with the Lord at the center of it and the service of the church and the gospel, like that there's there's a yes that's involved with that. Staying faithful to our vows for our whole life. There's like a yes. And if our whole lives on natural things, we've said no our whole life, now all of a sudden we think because it's a spiritual thing, we're going to say yes. Like that's just not, I just don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
And if there's a lot about Mother Teresa where like Mother Teresa's yes meant yes. And she made this like vow to like never hold anything back from God. And as people talk about her, like they look at the culture she came in and like her family's like, there's this natural virtue of like your word, and your word is your word, and you keep your word no matter what. And that was the nature. And on top of that foundation, the Lord could build, and she was able to stay yes and stay firm, even in the 50 years of struggle. But there was both together. Yeah. And so, yeah, go ahead.
And I'm just a big fan of like, even whether it's in the desert with the guys I constantly said over and over again. And I think in religious life or reform, it's the small yeses that make you holy. It's the small yeses that provide for this place of real sanctity to go deep. They said like Isaac Jogues, North American martyr, had an incredible thing, did incredible things. They said he was a saint long before he got to the New World. And because it was the yeses of the small things of holiness, getting up in the morning, praying, right? So it's in the desert, it was, and again, we'll talk about that in later episodes, but it was the small things that made these men grow and really push through. And I think there was a lot of holiness that we kind of broke through in the desert because it was the small yeses over and over and over again. It wasn't the big dramatic, oh, like, look at me. Like there were some of those big moments and they're fun to talk about. But what makes people holy is the small yeses over and over again for like pouring yourself out for the Lord and for others.
And that's the importance of that. We're going to like really dive into that next episode. That's not,
I get ahead of all that. I get excited.
It's not bad to tease it now because that's true. But Angelus, before we kick it back to Jackie, do you have anything to add on this?
It's just beautiful to see when guys grow and then they come back and apply it to their everyday life and they realize that hard things in the friary or hard things in the neighborhood or people's own suffering, that they've been able to push through it, but responding to God's grace, and they walk around with confidence. Mm-hmm. So I think the more we do small day by day with the Lord, the more we grow in confidence. And then that confidence gives us a greater trust in the Lord and a greater trust in what he's doing. And we can give the Lord even more. So it's great to see that actually happen because you're like, whoa, that doesn't mean anything in the desert if they don't actually bring it back and allow the Lord to work in that.
So say I'm calling you and I'm interested in becoming a CFR and like, so there's two guys. So one of them, it's like, yeah, I play video games about 6 hours a day and I eat a lot of pizza. I also pray and I make a holy hour every day. Mm-hmm. I don't really do sports or I just kind of like, that's kind of my thing. And it's interconnected. So I have my friends there. And so that's like, about 6 hours a day. And there's another guy who's like, I pray and make a holy hour a day. And then, like I like working with my hands. I like kind of being outdoors. I like playing sports. I'm part of a youth group. Like, would one of those be like more like, okay, I think I have a better sense about one than the other?
Yeah, I think the human things we talk about being as a guy capable, the guy's capacity to say yes to God, capacity to live in community, mm-hmm. capacity to be healthy. It comes down to desire and capacity. So the gift of talking about a guy's capacity would be like, are you healthy? Yeah. And do you have the human qualities necessary to be in relationship with others? Do you have the ability to be obedient with your time, to sacrifice your time? And so you're looking at that. And, the guys that's kind of glued to the technology, does he have the capacity to live without it? Does he have the capacity to go enter into a life of silence? Does he have a capacity to be disconnected and to be able, so and those aren't red flags, but those are certainly flags where you would be like, hey, let's grow in that, bro. Because what is the ultimate, what we always say, what does a healthy CFR look like? You could propose that, Jeff. Like, this is what a healthy CFR, I feel like we spend most of our life talking about what a guy that would struggle would look like. But sometimes it's fun with our little team we have in the community or vocation offices. It's like, what does the ideal CFR look like? What does the healthy CFR look like? What does the holy CFR look like? And you start with that, you're like, whoa, that's awesome. And so we compare that with the guy's ability and desire and capacity to be able to grow into that. Mm-hmm. And most guys are able to make that journey. Sometimes it takes time, and these journeys take time.
Right. Yeah. And we talked about a little bit before, like we want to be healthy at the service of being hardcore.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's a capacity question. Like we want to have this foundation so that you have the capacity to live radically for Jesus for your whole life?
For a long time. And that's a sustainability question. Yeah. Can we sustain this grace? Can we sustain this growth? Can we sustain this Franciscan? The nature of being Franciscan is a radical one, but then that means I need to be healthy in all parts of my life so I can move in a trajectory that allows me to do that for a long time.
The foundation is so important. Sure. If there's cracks in the foundation, we got to shore that up. Because I always tell the guys, I want you to live this for the next 80 years. And I want you to give everything.
Right.
But we have to like build the foundation brick by brick.
And I would say a lot of the work in the desert, it's like freeing the capacity.
Yeah, totally.
Right? It's like we need you to have the capacity to choose hard things on a natural level, because you're following Jesus is going to require also the capacity to choose hard things in the supernatural.
You got to do hard things, bro.
You got to be able to be with your brothers on the journey. You got to be able to be vulnerable and dependent on them. You got to be able to pick up their slack when they need it. You got to be able to keep your capacity. Like a lot of this is capacity questions.
And I love how you say that, because it's not just to do it once, but it's to do it over and over again.
Yeah.
So like in the context of reforming our lives, renewing our lives, that's why it's like the discipline. Like, can I do this over and over again? Like, I don't want just like when, like Jackie, you speak of these things, like, we want people to pray, but like what's a relationship look like? We can choose this every day or choose the pillars every day. So it's just like, okay, it's not just like Father Glenn talks about the sparkler, kind of like the sparkler image, like you light a sparkler, it's like, oh, this is like so great. Then it just goes out. Like we want the fire, even if it's just like a small flame, that's sustained over a long period of time and grows.
All right, Jackie, can you speak into this a little bit, particularly maybe work in that concept of capacity, and then at some point just address those who are like, yeah, okay, I want it, but like I don't like who don't feel maybe they have the capacity to make the first step.
Well, the sustainability comes from the black and white. It comes from having him at the center, because when he's at the center, we can sustain what we want to. We can sustain this lifestyle. We have to keep him at the center though. And it's when he goes out of the focal point that it actually becomes unsustainable, because something else slips in. And then we actually have, we're working out too intensely, or our work becomes our God, or our diet is our total focus. And we've become so focused on what we can or can't eat that we're actually not even able to be social in certain circumstances. So we can actually hold on to this idea or the reality of having this be sustainable forever if we keep him at the center. And that's the freedom there. And a lot of times people will say like, well, this actually feels really hard because I don't feel free because I'm doing these things obediently, but it doesn't feel natural to me. And it will become natural over time, because ideally, and honestly, it actually is what we want. We get more freedom with obedience, and it's obedience and saying yes to who you truly are and who Christ wants you to be every single day. And so we have 5 virtues for reforming that we call them. And the first is awareness, which we spoke about last time. The second is consistency. And so it's choosing to do the things that you know you need to do to become more holy over and over and over again every day. And as we said it last episode, and as we're saying it now, if we were to just say, okay, what's one thing you can do to become more happy, more healthy, or more holy, or all 3, every single person in their life knows one. There's one thing. Whether it's a vice that we're reliant on, whether it's a food that we know maybe doesn't make us more healthy, whether it's a lack of exercise or too much, whether it's the relationship, the job. There's a lot of things that kind of are in our lives that we can be really honest about that may not belong in there. And so after we have consistency, we go through patience, compassion, and trust. And those are the last 3 virtues. And those really speak to the fact that in consistency, sometimes we believe that things should happen overnight. Like, I've been doing this consistently now for X amount of time, so this is my expectation. But the Lord works at a totally different pace, sometimes a lot faster. And we're like, whoa, I'm sorry, I just started this. I'm not ready for this. Or a lot slower, because he wants to get all of you. And so even if you're making these changes consistently, we need to be patient and compassionate with ourselves, with other people, and with the Lord, and trust him wholeheartedly that if we're keeping him at the center of all of these changes, that he's going to stay with us. He's not going anywhere. As far as just what's one thing that we can do or how to get started, the first step after we've taken space now. That was what we talked about last time, and really have cultivated some awareness around the state of our body and our soul, is giving our firm yes, like mirroring Mary, giving our fiat and saying, I'm going to let you in all of these holes and all these places to every single part of my life. I'm giving you my 100% yes. I'm scared, but I know that on the other side, I'm going to be fully alive, and that it's not the freedom that I have to make the choices to sleep in or to eat whatever I want or to be in this relationship. It's actually the freedom that I'll receive through life in obedience to you.
And this is just not like a deep question. My understanding is that business is good right now, meaning that there's a lot of people coming to, and like the demand is developing. Is that right?
It's correct. Yeah.
And I think because we like more and more, we people are getting in touch with that. It's like the environment we live in. If you're just kind of living in the world, like it's not healthy.
No,
it's not healthy. But it has an effect on us, and we're like, okay, you know what? Like people are like feeling the burn, and they're feeling the breakdown and all that. It's like, okay, you know what? I don't. It's okay. I'm not okay, but I want to be okay, and I want to make some steps towards that. And one of the things I was thinking is, you have a program called Reform Wellness, and what's the seminar or the short?
The online course. So we have Reform Online Live. I started it in the spring and during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so it's a 6-week course where we meet in groups on Zoom. It's just, we go through each pillar. And so we kind of invite people into awareness and into consistency. And primarily the first class and the first step is inviting the Lord into our journey to holiness, with a W in front of it, to wholeness and holiness. And so we meet each week for 6 weeks in community. We also have office hours where we kind of break down what I teach in each of the 6 classes. Soon it won't just be I teach, it will be we teach. And Father Innocent over there is going to be one of the leaders. And then we also have an accountability partner that will journey alongside you. And then we meet with each person, our team. My sister is one of the consultants, Tracy. You meet with us one-on-one, and we really dive in. We take a bird's eye view, probably similar to what you do with the postulants, Father Innocent, where you're speaking to the group, but then there's a bio-individuality where each person is unique. And so we can speak to the group and we know a little bit of what everybody needs. But then there are certain things about you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually that we've got to break down and focus on. So that's kind of what it encompasses to be in Reform Online Live.
And the reason we're having you on this is, and I was talking to Father Innocent about it a little bit before, is I think a win for Jesus is a win for us, and a win for Jesus in hearts and souls is a win for us. And I think that what God's doing through Reform, it's really going to help a lot of people. And for many people, that could be the best first step or next step. And we do get like way more than we could possibly take requests for spiritual direction. And my hunch, I'm not going to say this is 100% sure, but for most people, what they think they want spiritual direction or need spiritual direction because they just don't. That's like what they know. But what they really need is like what Reform's offering. What they really need is like a holistic, like re-examination and sort of reboot. And that's why I really do, as we're beginning this process of renewal and inviting people on this journey of renewal with us, I want to invite people to reformwellness.co.
Yep.
Reformwellness.co to check out Reform Online and to pray about and discern about, like, is this something that the Lord's calling you to? Could this be the next best step in your journey with the Lord? Because I think that a lot of people are trying to get by reaching out first step of spiritual direction, that's like, it's a little bit too limited. Like what we really want is to relook at everything. And so I just encourage our listeners to check that out. Do you guys have anything?
I was just thinking when Jackie was talking to you, like when we put Christ at the center and he starts to affect all these parts of my life, like it's sustainable because the fruits of the Holy Spirit come. And so I experience joy when I'm able to walk this journey with Christ and have him come into all these parts of me. And so my life is better with the Holy Spirit. My life is better when I'm happy, when I'm happier and joyful and more at peace and more confident in the Lord. And so I can do this over time because the fruit of it works. And the fruit of my walk with the Lord and the fruit of like the healing and the wholeness that come is like the Holy Spirit comes and I'm able to experience life differently. And that's why I'm like, yeah, I want that. Like this I need. And and I want it to last forever, you know? And so the joy that overflows from living this way is like the gift that comes from being able to let the Lord come.
Yeah. Amen. I accompany a group of kind of young, of adults, just a general group. And one of the women in the group is a grandmother and she's a widow. And I was talking about, she's just like the real deal. I was talking about like how she prays. And she's like, cause she lives alone, like when I'm doing the dishes, I just imagine I'm there doing the dishes with Jesus. And I talk to him while I'm doing the dishes. And while I'm setting the table with Jesus. And when I'm cleaning with Jesus. And I think that's a great image. Like we just want to do everything with Jesus. And again, we want to invite him into all the areas of our life and have his gentle and healing touch it all. But he's, we talk about Jesus being a gentleman. Like he's not going to, he respects our freedom. And so we really have to give him permission to get into everything, even coffee. But we don't need to start there, Before we close, any other thoughts? All right, reformwellness.co. Check it out. Jackie, this is not like a sponsored episode. There's a reason we bring Jackie in to work with the postulants. There's a reason we brought her in here. Like we just believe in this, and this is an incredible first step if you're able to pursue it. And then you can start pre-ordering tomorrow Habits for Holiness, which we're going to be rocking on this podcast.
Oh, we're going to be rocking it, bro.
We're totally going to be rocking it, bro.
Can I write the forward for that, or is it too late?
Too late.
Okay.
Yeah, too late. I had your sister Katie do it.
Wow. That was smooth.
All right.
Hey, was this the episode that he broke the chair? Or was that?
Yeah. Because this is the thing. You got to be all in. Because like, if otherwise you have a 3-legged chair and you're going to fall down. You got to bring everything to Jesus.
This has been a long episode. We got to close this up.
All right. Poco.
Little by little.
We'll have Jackie back next week. All right.
God bless everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey. Little by little we learn a little more each day that God is love.